Okay, so I want to thank my colleague Tracy Kalick. We're both going to be kind of splitting the webinar today. I'll go first, and then I'll turn the time over to Tracy. She's going to share some resources that they have. And so these are always kind of fun because I think that it's good to see that there are a lot of resources. Sometimes we feel like we're the only ones out there in MigrantEd, and then you get out and you get to see, there's different resources that are available. So this is a little bit different topic for us. We usually, most of our stuff is related to IDNR, but with IDRC, one of the things that we're supposed to be doing this year is improving the beginning services that recruiters provide. And I'm going to just share a little context of kind of some things that we're doing in IDRC and things that were just reminders that we want to send out. And then we're going to switch it over and share some actual resources and links and things that you can use. And Tracy's going to go into IDRC or ISOSY has a ton of resources that's available. We just want to make sure that everyone knows how to access them and what you can do with those. So we're going to try to pay attention to the chat box. And so if you have a question, we will take a look at those. If you raise your hand, we'll probably just lower your hand. Just use the chat box if you can, because that's the easiest way for us to pay attention to that. And then we will be dropping some links into the chat box if that's distracting to you and you don't want to, you just want to focus on what we're saying. You don't have to follow those. I find it's helpful because you can always bookmark it and come back later on. And so we want to make sure that you have those there. So, okay. So if you don't, my name is Jessica Castaneda. And I've been working now with IDRC now a couple of years. And Tracy, do you want to do a little bit intro right now? Okay.
Yep. Hi, I'm Tracy Kalick. I'm the director of ISOSY, and I believe this is my 11th year as director in its various iterations. And this is my 25th year in education. So yeah, can't even believe that. Don't try to do the math and do my age. Anyway, I'm very excited to be here. So thanks, Jessica, for inviting me.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Okay, so here we have one of the things that our focus is really looking at the idea of how crucial recruiters are to MigrantEd in general, but also really setting the context and thinking about related to services. So this idea that, the relationships that you set with families really helps to set the tone for what they expect from the program. And this has always been the case. If you've got a good recruiter, I know one of my favorite parts of IDNR, and is also one of the parts that I like the least, is when you first show up and you talk to someone and they're so nervous and they don't want to talk to you. That's the part that I don't like. But when I end and they're comfortable or they're waving and saying, come back, and you know that you've put them at ease. So I really feel that building on what we're sharing today, we're getting the idea of beginning services that can be provided by a recruiter, or resources that are out there. We really believe that the recruiter has, if you set that tone, you can kind of lead right into services very, very well. And so we feel like it's not just, there could be some steps and things that you could do related to IDNR and beginning services that all recruiters can do. But we realize that what we're going to be sharing right now are ideas. Every state has their own parameters. So please do not go back and say, Jessica said that we could do this or this. And then your boss says, no, you can't. So be aware that we're going to be sharing resources that are out there, things that you can do, ideas that you can do, that if you're in the position to be able to go back and say, hey, is this something I can do? You can always ask. But if someone says, hey, that really is not what we see as your position, then that's, that's your state's prerogative on how they set that up. But the services provided, it says, should be based on what is allowable in your state and with your position. So we're going to swing wide with the idea that there's some things that recruiters can do in general when they first meet families that can help begin the process of services. But I think that sometimes it can get muddled of like, what is a service? And I think that this sometimes in MigrantEd, our services can be really, really good. And sometimes they can be very minimal. And, like the person may say, what was MigrantEd? Who helped me? I never got any of that. So I want you to just think in your mind. And if you want to, in the chat box, go ahead and put a yes or no. A migrant recruiter signs up a student and then brings some flyers to invite the family to attend a reading night that is coming up. So in your mind, I want you to think, is this a service according to like what would be counted as a service on like the CSPR? A migrant recruiter hands out hygiene bags when he signs up a new OSY. A migrant recruiter gives out a towel, some soap, gloves, and shampoo when he signs up a new family. A migrant recruiter tells a family about an upcoming ELL lesson offered by MEP when she signs the family. So we're going to talk about what services are, and I want to be very clear that these are not like, this is not what a migrant family should get, and this is the service. Like, oh, I've helped them out, I gave them a towel. That is not what we should be doing. You can be giving these things out, but that does not mean you now consider that family to be served. So I want to go back and someone says, I think all would be services. I want to go back because I feel like in some of our places, this is all that families are getting. And I want you to really go back to what our migrant program should be doing. So according to the guidance, it says for the purposes of MEP, what are services? So we all get money for migrant ed. There's some things that we should be doing. It says services are a subset of all of the activities that the MEP provides through its programs and projects. Services, so what we're talking about is services, are those educational or educationally related activities that, one, directly benefit a migrant child. Two, now it doesn't say that we can just do one or we can just do four. These are the things that they're looking at all together. One, they directly benefit a migrant child. Two, they address a need of the migrant child consistent with the state's comprehensive needs assessment and service delivery plan. So what is in your, if you're a new recruiter and you're thinking, what is that? You want to know what does your needs assessment say that your migrant families are really needing? And what does your service delivery plan say that you're going to provide for services? Three, are they grounded in scientifically based research, or in the case of support services, are a generally accepted practice? And four, are designed to enable the program to meet its measurable outcomes and contribute to the achievement of the state's performance targets. So when you go back to what I had on the previous slide and you say, okay, a migrant recruiter hands out hygiene bags when he signs up a new OSY. I am a huge proponent of having things in your hands when you recruit, but I shouldn't now be saying this migrant student was served by the program, because it's got to meet all four of these things. Is it showing that it's able to meet my measurable outcomes and contribute to the achievement of state performance? Is it doing these things, or did I just get this OSY's, I gave him something valuable for his time. He's willing to sign up. He's willing to take this leap that I'm going to do something to help him. I got that started. But so you see, there's a purpose to have things in your hands for IDNR, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden that you have just helped this person and served them and you're done with them. So it says here, here's another question in the guidance on A5. Why is it important for local operating agencies to provide services of sufficient intensity in operating the MEP? It is important to design services that are of sufficient intensity to provide reasonable promise of the project's ability to meet its measurable outcomes. So there's some outcomes that your state has that are saying, we hope to make sure that we're going to meet these objectives to help these students meet these specific outcomes. So it says, in turn, the attainment of these outcomes enables the program to help migrant children succeed in school to contribute to the achievement of the state's performance targets. So one of my pet peeves is I feel like things have, and sometimes we water down things and we're like, hey, I spent 15 minutes with this guy. I taught him how to use a dictionary. He is served. Well, you need to go back and look at what specifically your state is saying. What are your performance targets? What are you trying to show? Because this program exists to hopefully raise the bar and allow more kids, more youth to succeed, to educationally, to, academically, socially, all of these things. And so we have a bunch of things that we should be doing. So today we want to share some things that get you started in the path to serving families, but it shouldn't be like if IDRC sends your states, we do this for our states, and we send them hygiene bags, and they can give those to eligible migrant families when they sign them up. We're not considering now that all those families are served. We're considering that they were given a hygiene bag when they were signed up in the beginning part of the IDNR process. And so that's just something to help that recruitment process. But then there's the need of what are the actual family's needs and how do I meet that? So here's an example. If you're kind of thinking, I think that we might count that as a service in our state, in those original slide that I said, here's just something to think about. It says, what are some examples of allowable activities that do not constitute a service? Activities related to IDNR, parental involvement, program evaluation, professional development, or administration of the program are examples of allowable activities that are not considered services. Now here's an example. Another example would be handing out leaflets to migrant families on available reading programs as part of an effort to increase the reading skills of migrant children. Although this is an allowable activity, it is not a service because it does not meet all of the criteria in question A1, which we read, which it does not directly benefit the migrant children, is not grounded in scientifically based research, and in and by of itself, the activity will not increase children's reading and thereby reading skills, thereby increase their ability to meet the state's performance targets. So I think that, so I have a comment here that says, Sarah Martinez said to me last summer that support services should include more than one contact in order to count as services for category 2. Very good comment. Like, you can't just like, hey, we met them, we signed them up, we did this, and we never saw them again. So this gives, I just felt like we might, if you're a new recruiter, you might not have seen this. You may have seen a lot of the IDNR side, but maybe not seen as much on the service side. And so I just want to make sure that we're kind of, doing this. And so next slide says, remember that you have your needs, your resources, you're trying to bridge the gap. Remember what a service is. Make sure you're familiar with your needs assessment, your state service delivery plan, what needs do your students and families have. And a lot of times in that process, when they do the needs assessment, they'll ask recruiters, say, hey, what are you seeing? You'll see things as you're out and about. Parents will share those things. It says we should be ensuring that MEP offers high quality, effective services to migrant programs. And IDNR efforts should not be all that the families get. It can't be, hey, I gave you a book when I signed you up, so I helped with literacy. No, it's got to be more than that. Got to be, really trying to raise the bar on this. This is
Hey,
the
Jessica,
hygiene bag. Yes.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Yep.
Yes. If the hygiene bag and materials are part of the first lesson offered, is that considered the service? Because that is usually how we start. So again, you'll have to go back to this particular thing. So if I gave a hygiene bag and materials, did it directly benefit the migrant child? Does it address a need of the migrant child consistent with the state's comprehensive needs assessment and service delivery plan? So did you see that personal hygiene was maybe a real concern that for families? If I'm just teaching like a COVID lesson, it has to meet all of these 4 things. I just began to work with the family. They should not be considered served because I worked with them for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So it has to meet all of these. It should. And if we really think about the essence of what we're doing, if this program literally just spent all the effort that we spent on and just to sign up, and then we just served 15 minutes or an hour and we walked away, there's no way we'd be funded for what we're funded for to be able to do that. So we really need to make a difference in the lives of the kids that we're working with. So it says here, here's an example of, we're going to start talking about what kind of things are beginning services to begin the process of serving families. So this is a really good example from Vermont. One of the ways that they use recruiters is to, ISOSY has been doing for years, the OSY profile, which just helps like, how far is the youth gone to school? Have they graduated? Well, obviously they haven't graduated, but what are their health needs or medical needs, things like that? Well, they have one that they use with their whole family. And so they take a look at, do they have any special education services that they receive? They have any truancy issues? Is any extended family living in the home? And so they do this extra profile to just, rather than just, hey, I signed up a family, now someone needs to go meet them and see what their needs are. They try to meet them, go ahead, sign them up, go ahead and figure out their needs right there in the beginning when they get started. And so that's an example of how some states are beginning this. I will drop this form here in a little bit in the chat box. This is an example from Vermont. This is just, and so all of these I will put on the webinar page too, any examples that we share, so you can kind of see, what this looks like. So this is an example of trying to determine needs. So part of what we talked about as a service is that you need to look at what your needs assessment. If you already know needs that you're focusing on, but this allows you to gather more data specifically on needs that families have. So here's some examples of supplies that can be helpful in the IDNR process, although they shouldn't just be considered the service. So resource guides, recruiters could have listing of all different community partners and agencies that offer things that might be helpful to families in an area. You can have work-related supplies such as bandanas or gloves. You can have hygiene supplies for mobile workers or COVID supplies such as masks and hand sanitizer. You can even have books to learn English or language dictionaries again, these are supplies that you can share, that you can have. It is very hard to sign up somebody if you literally are just filling it out, and especially the youth. Like if you're going to like talk about your program and not have anything to hand tangible right then, I have found that many times the reason they signed up was because I was going to give them something right then. But again, this is part of the process of beginning to work with this person, but it shouldn't be all that they get. Another example is family literacy. We talked a little bit about you could give a book, but you can also, it says bilingual books. School supplies are for children can also be used to really sit down and talk with parents, explain the importance of role of literacy. Even if they can't read, you can talk about how important oral literacy and the things that they can do with them. Kids can pick out books. We used to do this in Tennessee where we would do like a lending library. We would get books. With COVID, it's a little bit harder to do that, but we would always have books that they could pick. And then we talk about how important we felt it was for parents to work with their children. And so we would talk with them on different levels on, how comfortable are you helping with their homework? And if they weren't, we'd talk about, ways that they could just make sure that their child had, a good place to learn, a safe, a quiet place, and just how they could support that. And then how to navigate if they were struggling in school. And so recruiters can kind of start that beginning conversation. And it can be really helpful with the idea from like Vermont that you're talking to them about how they're doing in school, and then kind of gauging how comfortable the parent is in helping their child. Another example is milestone information. There's a good, let's see if I can just share this link real quick in the chat box. There is a real good, it's a newer website that is specifically just for preschool, for parents that have preschoolers, and has some really good information of just all different kinds of games and stuff that you can do. But it also gives some good milestone information on what different age groups should be able to do. And so sometimes we would have our recruiters in Tennessee, we would try to make sure that they knew of some of these resources to share. But you might be able to work with maybe in your area, you're able to work with those parents and make sure that they have, that the kids are in a pre-K program. But these have some good resources of really learning these milestones of when kids might be having some delays, and when you can kind of let families know and see these resources. I think this is in another language, maybe. So here's just let me go on to this one. So it says if you have some time when you meet them, I know a lot of people will do, like we just mentioned, you might do an ELL lesson. It says ELL lessons that focus on helping them know key subjects and concepts. A lot of times families will need to know what to do in an emergency, how to talk to the school. I know ISOSY is going to share, Tracy's going to share a lot of resources they have, and a lot of them are right up this alley. How to obtain needed supplies, resources in the community. So there's different things that you can do to begin that beginning instruction. But like Sarah said in the comments, just because you met with them that one time, there's going to be more that needs to happen. Sometimes formal ELL instruction is not always the way to go. I've got this here. Sometimes you go to a class and they'll try to start teaching you all of these different tenses. A lot of times families are just trying to make it and know how to communicate, and they want to have, recruiters can be really helpful in helping them with that beginning information. IDRC, we do have a couple resources that we just recently put up. I think we've shared these with a lot of people who've used the English in Minutes. We have a brand new one that goes with English in Minutes that I'll drop into the chat box here too. There's been a whole bunch of ELL information, like, let me see, sorry, I can't talk and do this at the same time. Put this in the box. So this right here is just a compilation of some ELL plans that go with the English in Minutes books. So there's a ton of them. There's more than you probably ever need. They've got worksheets. This is the idea that if you just wanted to pull different ones of the books on the IDRC website, there are lots of different bilingual resources that are available here. And on this front page, make sure I'm sharing it with you. Yeah. If you scroll down, just scroll down a little bit to the bottom where it says access our language recruiter resource page. We've got a couple books here. We've got South Carolina's books, Tennessee's books, the English in Minutes books. But then under here, we have this ELL lessons for English books. So if you want to click on that, that's where that can be found at. So there's a million different things that you can do with ELL. Learning a language is large and encompassing. And so These are just two resources that we wanted to share that I think we've already shared before, so I don't want to go into it too much. But if you're new and you didn't know about the lesson plans, that is a brand new one. This is also, let me see if it'll actually let me, I don't know if it'll let me add. I'm going to see if I can put a file right here in the, right here on, let's see if I can get this to work. Let's see if I can add it right here. So I'm going to see if I can put in something that is called, well, I got to find it. It is a spreadsheet that has a whole bunch of Common Core standards. And I want to explain why we would even include this in here. Let me see if I can get it. It may not let me do it right here. Okay, so I don't think it's going to let me do it right there. So let me just open it up and I'll put it on the website here. Let me share this. So one of the things that we found is a lot of times recruiters will have a challenge with, or staff, is to know what different grade levels need to know in different subjects. And so I'm going to put this, post this, and when Tracy's talking, if I can get it to get into the chat box, I'll go ahead and do it and see if I can post the document. But what this is basically is a spreadsheet that has, let me see, it has all different Common Core subjects from, it has, if you look at the bottom of the spreadsheet here, you'll see that there's things in blue. And then if you scroll over, we have Common Core English Language Arts, we have science, it's got Common Core math. So one of the challenges is, let's say you have an OSY that has only gone to the second grade. And you're thinking, how do I teach him? Because I don't want to teach him like he's a little kid, but how do I know what he might know? One of the things that we suggest is, if they've only gone to second grade, you can always take a look at what second grade math is and see. And so if you scroll along here, here's all of the skills that a second grader needs to know related to math. And so maybe your OSY doesn't really know yet inches, feet, centimeters, meters, but these all give you the specific skills that they're supposed to do, and then gives you examples of what they should be able to do in that skill. So we have this for the entire, all the way for every single grade level. We also have all of the math, all the vocabulary words that they need to know, all the academic vocabulary. So one of the things that we always like to do is train our recruiters on understanding just what different grade levels needed and what they know. So if they're struggling with something, they could be kind of aware, or if they were ever asked to help with something, homework, they could be aware of just different skills that different grade levels need to know. So with IDRC later on, we're going to be doing more training on how to train recruiters on understanding just kind of things that they can do if they're not certified teachers, to understand what different grade levels need to know if they do have a chance to help children in any way, kind of tutoring. But this resource is literally all the skills into one spreadsheet, more than you could ever need. And it has a lot of ways that can make your life a little bit easier when you are trying to figure out, let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. I mean, we really like to help recruiters know how to do beginning instruction. And so this is not something we're really fully going to go way super in depth in today, but we are with IDRC, we will be offering more trainings on this. And so I also very much like to, a lot of times recruiters wind up doing a lot of services with OSY. I like to use this as the last grade that they finished, take a look at the skills that they would be at that level, and to help give me an idea of some things that I could work with them next. An example here is the academic vocabulary for math. Here's some different math skills that are needed, different words that are vocabulary that's helpful. So we like to teach recruiters on how to do a targeted instruction. And so this will be something that you'll see more from IDRC that'll be available, and that'll be helping. So it says here, pick it, if you're working, you can actually pick an activity and clearly ensure it will help meet their needs academically by checking back on those skills that they need. And so we'll provide a lot more training on this coming forward, but we will put the spreadsheet out there for those that just want to take a look at it. So if you are a certified teacher, a lot of times people say, well, I'm not a certified teacher, I'm not sure what to do. But if you are a certified teacher, sometimes it can be overwhelming too, because the needs of migrants' families are different than maybe some of the students that you're seeing in your classroom. And so we always tell, if you're a recruiter and you happen to be a certified teacher, which sometimes happens too, you'll see that the levels, the needs that you have with your migrant kids are maybe different than what you're seeing. And then one of the challenges that you'll have to know is learn how to work with multi-age grade levels. A lot of times you may have in a family a third grader and a sixth grader, and you're working with both of them at the same time and how to do that. And so it can be a real challenge, but we feel like with everything in services, the better trained we are, the better we can help. But like it says here, for all staff, we want to make sure that everyone's really trying to strive for excellence and not just doing the minimum, but trying to really see how we can best work with families. So for things that are going to be upcoming for IDRC, we're in the process of developing a resource and a service portal for recruiters. So you should start seeing things for that about February. We'll push those out and so that people can access those. We'll also be providing training to recruiters on how to create effective ELL plans. There are a lot of different resources out there, but how to pick and choose and then make sure that what you're offering is interesting to those that are attending your class, but also relevant depending on their needs and their skills, how to organize your materials and your time, and how to teach those students with different levels as effective as possible. And so that's one of the things that we hope to have come out here pretty soon. Today, we are really blessed to have Tracy with us because they have resources, just a myriad of resources that are available for you guys. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn the time over to Tracy so she can kind of share specifically some of the many resources that they have.
Thank you. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you for having me, Jessica. Jessica and I have worked together for many, many years, and it's always a pleasure to continue collaborating and especially doing these sorts of sessions where we cross-train and really take a look at how can we best use our resources for the good of all students. So today we're going to talk about who we are at ISOSY, and then I'm going to share with you some very specific resources that were designed for use when you don't have a lot of time. And I'm going to walk you through how they would qualify for a service, what they target, and how to use them. But first of all, I did want to introduce the consortium, and I do need to apologize for my voice. I'm a little hoarse. I don't have COVID, but I am dealing with a little bit of a sinus problem that's affecting my voice, so bear with me. ISOSY stands for Instructional Services for Out of School and Secondary Youth. We have 18 member states, and we're really focused on building state capacity to support the success of both out of school and secondary youth who are at risk of dropping out of high school. So we really focused the past 2 years on extending our services and reach along a continuum. So continuing to focus upon supporting out of school youth, but taking a look at how do we prevent students from dropping out? What do we know about those students who are at risk of dropping out? And how do we continue to support states and local at the state and local level to support those students? So here are 18 member states, and I know a lot of you are on the call today, so thank you. So if you do want to chime in at any point, please do so. As I mentioned before, our primary purpose is to increase state and staff capacity to provide instruction, and we're really focused on improving the educational attainment of OSY and secondary students at risk of dropping out. Because what we know right now is only 1% of OSY receive a high school equivalency diploma while within the migrant education program. We know that 45% of secondary migratory students are currently at risk of dropping out. And we all know the barriers to education that our students face, whether it's limited English skills, inflexible work schedules, homelessness, the absence of a parent or guardian, limited prior schooling, really looking at high mobility, and of course, substantial educational interruptions that affect their lives. And we know oftentimes that OSY are dealing with facing the reality that traditional pathways to a diploma are not practical for them. And we also know that research makes it very clear that personal wellness and mental health have a direct impact on educational opportunity and attainment. And that's why we're also focusing on personal wellness, trauma, and mental health for our students and our staff. So we really begin, and I emphasize these questions with all of our states, and then reference them as the big questions. We want to know, how does my program match the resources available with specific OSY and secondary youth needs and goals? How can service providers and recruiters instruct OSY and secondary youth in ways that are purposeful, engaging, and productive? So as Jessica said, really moving beyond just from handing out a bag, but looking into how can we be engaging and productive and very purposeful in our planning? And then as service providers moving, beyond recruitment, how can we track the progress of these youth and plan their next steps towards success, whether it's in my state or the next state, because we know we're one stop on their journey. And then finally, what resources are available to support OSY and secondary youth with these ambitious goals? And I'm going to be sharing some of those today. We know it's not easy to find migratory students, in particular, to find our OSY, to connect with them, communicate with them, and serve them. And even if you've been on the job for just a few weeks, this is something that you already know really well. I wanted to share with you one of our success stories in his own words, because I think this is much more powerful than I could ever express myself. Luis said, and please note, this is a real student. He's standing before you in that picture with his diploma. He says, no one can imagine how hard it is until you live it. In addition to the new language, you face a different environment, different situations, and different people. It's impossible to explain in words. It requires much effort and dedication to adapt to a new life. The migrant program support and guidance encouraged me not to fail, but to take advantage. And I think that's really powerful and important for us to remember, that we want our students, all of them, to take advantage of what our migrant program has to offer. So in the chat box, I would love just to hear very quickly, and I'm going to ask you to type fast, is what are some of the challenges you or your staff are facing when working with and providing an initial service to OSY? Just take a moment in the chat. Limited time, yes. We're going to help you there. Maintaining contact, work schedules, interests, language barriers. Yes, Sarah, some are H2A and have very little time. Work schedules, time, lack of interest beyond getting that backpack. Okay, yep, we got to find the hook for them. Some OSY are unmotivated to continue, staff time. Yes, and Tonda, we're going to talk about how to incorporate some of these pieces I'm going to share, because I know recruiters have a lot on their plate and a lot to do. Internet or broadband issues, changing addresses, phone numbers, mobility, internet. Yes, lots of work schedules. Thanks. Hi, Tino. Okay, thank you for that. Our biggest challenge is the highly mobile OSY and only getting to meet them one time sometimes. There's time for a stat lesson, but that's about it. And Wilson, as I said, we are one step on their journey, and maybe we can get them with that one stat lesson, which I am going to talk about, and then they move on. But perhaps because they've had that lesson, they're more inclined to access the MEP in the next state they move to. Okay, lack of interest in work hours. Yes, thank you. All right, now I would like to know, on the flip side, we've talked about the challenges you're facing, but what are some of your strengths when working with and providing a beginning service for OSY? I love it. Tenacity. Being creative and flexible. Yes. Once we build a relationship, they give us time. Persistence, gaining their trust. Yes. And Tino, you do an incredible job with that. Dedication, desire to learn. Wilson, thank you. Communication. Great. Offering those online classes when they can access them. Wonderful. Thank you. So many of the things you mentioned are what are going to enable you to really look at how to use the resources I'm going to share, because you've built that relationship. You're approaching it from a very flexible and creative stance. Engagement with families, absolutely. Seeing the want in the child and family's eyes when they benefit from the services we provide. Wonderful. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. So this is what we know works, right? First, we need to identify and recruit migratory students. Next, we need to analyze needs assessment data. Jessica shared what Vermont is doing. They also have have added a great deal to their OSY profile as well. We are going to be updating, we're in the process of updating and adding to some optional data elements for the OSY profile. We're going to start having our states use that next year, so be on the lookout for that. But then once we've gathered this needs assessment data, we've had a conversation, we've talked to the OSY or any migratory student. We really want to think about how do we match instructional resources to needs. Ultimately, once we provide that instructional resource, we want to check for student understanding, and then we want to know, did it work? We want to evaluate what's working. I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. So we have the tools to pave the path to success. So thinking about what I just shared in terms of we know what works, what I'm going to share with you today, I can't share all of it, but we have an incredible amount of materials, of curricular materials, of professional development materials, professional learning. We do have a provider portal, and we are in the process of, in the next month or so, we're going to be unveiling our student portal, which is going to be a one-stop shop for students. It's going to be an extension of learning, and this is going to be a great place where once you provide that beginning service, you direct students to go to. So what can we do for the most marginalized student population in the United States? Well, we can find them, help them articulate their goals, provide them with the tools and resources to accomplish their goals. How do we pave the path for success? Well, one, we want to have a clear understanding of our role in supporting students instructionally. We have the tools via ISOSY, and Jessica shared some as well, to assist in that process, but you do need to gain clarity from your own states about what is my role in supporting students. Take time for your own professional learning, make this a priority. This is significant. And then you need to determine what are the guideposts for students along this path. Is it pathways for success? Is it career and goal setting? Is it more academic focus? And then what are the direct supports, which I'm going to be sharing with you right now. First, I want to thank, we have so many within the consortium on our technical support team who are designing incredible tools. And I know Wilson's on the call, and he's been instrumental, along with a lot of others. Hope Dairy, Lori Petushnik, Lori Stewart. Hi, Lori, I saw your name on there as well. Hope Dairy, Veronica Hill, and Brenda Pesson have all worked to design the STAT lesson. So one thing that comes up over and over when we meet with recruiters is we don't have time. And when we go back to just a few minutes ago, that was the main issue that most of you mentioned with our students. We don't have the time, they don't have the time, right? And I'll be really honest, there was some initial pushback because of time constraints. And we said, we have to design something that's short, targeted, and timely, that will meet the needs of service providers, of recruiters if they're doing a beginning service, and we want to make sure that they address the limited instructional time that's often the reality of our service providers and OSY themselves. Keep in mind that everything I'm showing you today can be used with any student. It's not just out of school youth. So you want to make sure you're matching needs with instructional materials. It's practical and relevant to the needs and interests of OSY. And these were big requests from states about this is what we're seeing. And I'll throw in where we're going with this. So one thing I do want to make mention before I start is use your best professional judgment. If you know you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes with the student, this is what you can do. And then you want to use high quality resources and materials. So all of our STAT lessons have a standard lesson plan template, includes targeted basic vocabulary, interactive tools, and I'm going to take you to the website and show you this. We use Quizlet, Edpuzzle, Kia. We have practice activities. Remember how I said you want to check for understanding? Well, we also want to know what is a student able to do? What do they know and what are they able to do? So we want to have a way to gauge that. So we have a pre-assessment and we have a post-assessment to check for understanding. There's printed handouts, but I'll dig into that in a minute. I do want to show you a video which details a little bit more about how we developed and tested out some of these with OSY. Okay, as I mentioned before, addresses that issue of limited time and they're practical and relevant. Also talked about this. I don't think I mentioned there are videos, and we'll talk a little bit about that because I know some of you said, well, we don't have internet access. Our students don't have internet access and broadband access all of the time. So all of the worksheets and everything can be printed, or you can use it virtually. I do also want to mention, we target very specifically vocabulary and comprehension through all of the lessons that I would share with you today. So these would count as a reading service. So it's the English language development in a very targeted and practical way, flexible in your approach. And you can see once you dig into the materials, you can, they can be subdivided if time is limited. You could do it within 30 minutes. If you have a longer session, you can do that as well. So it's really as flexible as you want it to be. These are what we have on the website right now: at work, hand washing, ordering fast food, following directions, and staying in a hotel. Hey, Jessica, would you do me a favor? Will you monitor the chat to make sure there aren't questions and then just stop me because I'll keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And I'm going to take you to the website in a minute. We also know that we have several under development working at a dairy and heat stress. I wanted to mention, so if you were giving out a hygiene bag, a bag for OSY, and in the bag, you have sunscreen. Wouldn't it be wonderful to then follow up with a lesson on how to avoid heat stress? Just an example. So making that connection between the material that you hand out and an instructional resource. We're also working on potentially the next few topics: food banks and food storage. I mean, this is particularly suggested for OSY living in old hotels who don't really have access to refrigerators and, food safety issues. I did want to share briefly, we will not watch this whole thing, but I wanted to share with you just so you could see how easy it is to work through part of a lesson. This was actually done. We had a training and coaching institute last May with our technical support team, and we asked them to dig into the materials and then to teach it to all of us. So I just want to share, and I don't know if Bruce Lack's on this, but I did have his permission to use this in training. So I wanted to share this briefly with you.
So we're going to move on with our lesson. So we adapted the part one of the dairy lesson. We modified a little bit given the audience that we have, and we're going to kind of do the inverse. Instead of teaching the English, we're going to teach the Spanish. So, I am el maestro, the teacher. My name is Bruce, me llamo Bruce. Pero ¿dónde están las vacas? Where are the cows? Before we start, we want to talk a little bit about articles. So in Spanish, words are usually masculine or feminine. So a masculine word uses the article el, and a feminine word would use the article la. So when we say el maestro, we're talking about him, the teacher, a masculine word. And if we had a female maestra teacher, it would be la maestra. Maestra.
Fast forward just a little.
The toro is the bull, and I forgot to tell you that la vaca was the cow. So moving on. La becerra.
La becerra.
And we all got to practice, so I won't put Bruce on the spot anymore since you are on here. Thanks for letting me use this in training, Bruce. So what I want to do now is I'm going to toggle back and forth. I'm going to take you to the website and show you where to get this. So if you haven't been to our website, it is newly revamped. And I encourage you to take a look. If you would like, we have a tour of the website, what's new right there that you can access. But you go under practitioner, and you'll see, as I mentioned, there's the provider portal as well. But let's look at instructional resources. I don't have enough time to go through all of these, but there's just a wealth of materials here. We're going to go into life skills and stat lessons. And from there, we're going to click and access the stat lesson. And what I want to show you is we're going to look at work. So here you have a lesson plan. Everything you need to know is right before you. How long to focus on the lesson, what the objectives are. And as I said, students will be able to use targeted vocabulary related to work. Sorry about that. And students will be able to match words given with the correct image, and they'll be able to repeat commonly used phrases at work. I can statements for students. I can use target vocabulary related to work. There's some instructions, and then there's everything that you need to know. All the materials, the targeted phrases, the pre-assessments, the introduction, the key vocabulary. There's a couple of optional activities. And then if you do have access to the material or to the internet, I'll take you to some of these activities as well. And then there's some extension activities. And it talks you through if you have time, or this is something that a service provider can go in and then follow up on. And there's your post-assessment. So let's start with, I'm actually going to take you out of this and we'll go directly to, let's take the pretest. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll have you enter. Oh, thank you, Jessica.
Do you want to make sure that sharing your screen that we can see it? Because we still see your slides.
Oh, goodness.
Okay.
I wish you would have said that.
Well, I was like trying to thinking maybe.
Waiting for me to take a breath. Okay, can you see that now? Don't you hate that?
No, not yet. I just see.
Okay, hold on. Okay, now that's up. After I just went through and showed you everything that you weren't seeing, I apologize. Max, you have to toggle back and forth and it's not really convenient sometimes. So now you should be able to see the pre-assessment. So let's just do one or two questions, right? So we would have gone through and we would have talked about the vocabulary. I could have shown you some of it. We have cards, we have all sorts of activities, but this one, I really want to know going in ahead of time, do you have any prior knowledge? Do you know any of this? So I would ask, which is something you could wear when working outside? A hose, B, a bucket, C, a hat, or D, a bag? You just want to throw your answer in the chat. Okay, yep, you all got that right, of course. Yes, hat, sombrero, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so from there, we would know, okay, let's take a look at some targeted vocabulary. The objective is to learn at least 10 vocabulary words to use at work. You could print this off if you don't have internet access, and you could give this to your students. And what's great is it has the English, pronunciation. And then there's the word in Spanish, and then there's an image of the word, which is really useful. Okay, so you can see that. And then there's a practice worksheet, an answer key, and the post test. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to the lesson plan because I want to show you one more thing. So we do have, if you haven't used Quizlet, we're going to go there. And this is really fun as well. You can click on flashcards. Oh, there we go. And you can see the word in English and Spanish. You also, oh, I got out of there too quickly. I apologize. You can play games as well, but I want to show you the Ed Puzzle. So have you had a chance to use Ed Puzzle? This is really fun because this is a video of students themselves. Wait, hold on. And it's really about they're teaching, this young man here is teaching the others about what to wear at work and what to use. So let me see. And if you haven't used Ed Puzzle before, hold on. If I can start it over. well, it's not quite working the way I wanted it to do. But it has multiple choice questions, and it will pause and it will ask the student a specific question, and they have to get it right before the video continues. So he was actually asking them to put on the bandana. So then we continue. And then he was asking them to bring, the other young man to bring over the hose. And you can't, I realize you can't hear it quite well unless it's on your own laptop. So I apologize for that. Okay. Are there any questions? That was really basic, but there's a lot to play around with there. If you just take some time, it's very easy to use. Wilson, did you want to add anything about the stat lessons before I move on?
I don't think he'll be able to speak, so he just has to put it in the.
Oh, sorry. Well, you could put it in the chat box. Oh, and there's 10 minutes left. Okay. So very quickly, I just want to talk about another resource, and that is English for Daily Life. So let's go. Oh, and I should make mention, if you haven't used any of our COVID-19 life skills lessons, I would encourage you to do so. Again, this targets vocabulary, reading comprehension. It's available in English and Spanish, Korean, Nepali, Arabic, and Swahili. There's a student PowerPoint and audio in English and Spanish, and we are updating the Edpuzzle to encompass new information. Thank you. And Wilson, you said they're very adaptable to whatever time frame you're working with. Thank you, Wilson. Okay. So I do want to also introduce English for Daily Life. And I think what might be the easiest way to do this, we are going to take a look at the website. So I am going to end the show, and then I'm going back to the website. And if you cannot see it, let me know. So you should be able to see it right now. Okay. So we're going to go back under practitioner, instructional resources, and I'm going to take you to the ELL resources. And I think these also are a nice complement to what Jessica shared. All of our ELL resources with what she also has posted on IDRC, and I think we probably should cross-post those, Jessica. We can talk about that. But English for Daily Life was created. We really wanted an extension for learning, an enhancement to what was being done, but we also wanted these to be developed around pertinent topics that would engage students. So these were topics that students themselves said they wanted to know more. And Jessica initially worked on these several years ago, so I want to thank her for her time and expertise on that. If you're interested, at the bottom here of the screen, we have videos to explain to students and families in English and Spanish how to use this. And it's really great. We also have more videos for you all to take a look at, because as I realized, there's a lot here. So what we're going to do, we are going to look at grocery stores and shopping. Now, I do not want you to be intimidated by this, but I do want to make reference and just show you that we do have a complete lesson plan. It's for a 4-week period. So obviously you wouldn't be using all of this, but I'm going to pinpoint a couple of things today that you yourselves would be able to use. So it goes through and talks about the objectives, breaks it down by week, and then it gives you day by day what it looks like. So I did want to show that to you just in case you were so inclined and you wanted to check that out. But it is also broken out by week, by day, if you want to use it in that order, but you don't have to. So we're actually going to look at areas of the store today. We're going to look at subtopic 2, which is areas of the store. And as you can see, we have also a tremendous amount of supports for you and your students. So we have both teacher versions and student versions. We have videos, we have Kia, we have Quizlet, we have sample conversations that students can listen to. We have games as well. We have online flashcards and paper flashcards. But I actually want to show you a couple of things about healthy shopping, because I think these are great ways to connect to, we're all concerned about about taking care of ourselves, particularly right now during the pandemic. And so if you look at, here's a Kia, which goes into, if you just click start now, you'll be able to see. So they would watch the video. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm almost out of time. And then they would answer the questions. But we also have ed puzzles, which would take you around the store. So shopping the perimeter of the store to ensure that they get exactly why that's important. They're avoiding impulse buys, they're picking healthier foods. And then a service provider then could take this and say, wow, you've done this with them. I can follow up with a lesson for math from Finanza on setting a budget for, and then you could incorporate not just grocery shopping, but how do we set a budget for the month? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute because I have 4 minutes left. Okay. I was going to have you dig in with an example. And actually, let me pull this up, Jessica, if you don't mind. And let's have you all just take a moment. So the first scenario was kind of an easy one. You have a crew of watermelon cutters, and they've expressed a little bit of interest in learning some basic English phrases. That was a gimme. So you would be able to get that one. But let's take a look at scenario 2. There are 2 young women, 20 and 21. They're living in a motel for the fall squash season. They've told you they have some ideas for their futures, but are unsure of how to go about it or where to begin. What would you do? And you can enter in the chat. Where would you start? What would you do? Any suggestions? Thank you. Yep. Do they have a high school diploma? Establish the level of school completed? What are they interested in? Yes, needs assessment. I love it. You guys listened. Yes. Ask them about their interests in their previous education. Awesome. Wonderful. But also, yep, conduct the OSY profile. Thank you, Inez. But this is another great opportunity, and I didn't get to share this with you. Ideally, I was going to have you dig into the website. Ask more about their housing situation. Absolutely. We have some health lessons under life skills about a healthy house, and this would definitely fit. I would look for information on different careers and education programs in the area. Great idea. You also could go in and do some goal setting activities. And I would reference our goal setting materials. How would you grow? It's called. And it's under the tab for providers. It's on the provider portal. We have a student book. Yes, plans and dreams. Thank you. So I would start there. And I love, oh, there you go. Thank you, Jessica. So I'm going to stop right now and ask if you have any questions. I realize that was really fast, and there's just so much more available. And I want to thank all of our ISOSY members on the webinar as well.
So if you have any questions, put them in the chat box right now. We have about a minute left.
I talked fast.
Oh, you did good. And I'm also going to put, before anyone heads out, I'm going to put, hold on. I'm going to put in there the evaluation link for today. Yeah. Because we always like to get everybody's comments and thoughts and ideas for other trainings and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. As you're thinking of your questions, you can also click on the link for the evaluation.
We would greatly appreciate any, if you would give us some more feedback, that would be wonderful. And if you have additional questions, just reach out to me. You can get me through the website or at my email account, which is just tracykalick@gmail.com. So let me know. I'm happy to help. And Jessica and I talk a lot. So
Yeah.
just let us know.
Well, thank you all for your time. We where can we see the Vermont OSY? So that will be I'm going to post. Let me just show just on our website. If you go to the webinar page, we'll put it on there. So we'll put any of the references that and but thank you all for your time, and we'll go ahead and stop recording this.